In the 90s, it often seemed like almost every film ended up with a TV remake, from Ferris Bueller to The Net starring Sandra Bullock. Bill and Ted even had 2 television series running at the same time. But then the 90s ended, and I thought the era of television adaptations ended with it. Until the 2010s, and then we got a new wave of television adaptations of movies. Jason Statham's Transporter series got a TV spin-off. Taken, starring Liam Neeson, that got 2 seasons. I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream, they both got TV series as well. So after Taken, The Transporter, I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream, we now have True Lies, one of the greatest movies of the 90s, and not at all suitable for a TV adaptation. But first let's talk about True Lies the movie. And what a movie it is. Tom Arnold in his least insufferable performance ever. Arnold doing the action, charisma, the one-liners, and Jamie Lee Curtis providing the acting talent and most of the characterization of the movie. And Jamie Lee Curtis provides a relatable and sympathetic portrayal of a character who is having a midlife crisis, and that is in fact the driving point of the plot of the movie. So Jamie Lee Curtis has the family, the house, the job, everything that she should need to be happy, but she's not. She's bored. She thinks that she should have one last big adventure before she finally gets old. And this leads her to Simon, who pretends to be a super spy so that he can try and have an affair with her. And she almost nearly sort of does have an affair. But really she just wants the excitement, and the excitement that Simon provides is actually what her husband is doing. The super spy stuff that he's pretending to be involved with is actually exactly what her husband, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is really doing. What she has really been looking for all this time is what she would actually have if they were just honest with each other.
I'm starting to like this guy. Oh, we still got to kill him.
And if you take out the one-liners and the Harrier jump jets and the fight scenes and the nuclear bombs, then True Lies actually works pretty well as a relationship drama. In fact, the entire middle half of the movie, the entire middle hour of the movie, is dedicated to Arnold Schwarzenegger first investigating whether Jamie Lee Curtis is having an affair, and then setting up an elaborate fake spy operation to keep her entertained, which results in them being kidnapped into a real life or death situation. So the relationship aspect becomes strictly plot relevant, as Arnie's efforts to save their relationship directly lead to the events of the second half of the movie. And that's the real weakness of this new TV version. Don't get me wrong, the Arnold Schwarzenegger replacement is also very bad. He's one of the least charismatic actors I've ever seen. He can't do action, he can't deliver a one-liner, and the Tom Arnold character has been completely removed, which ought to mean an even greater focus on the Jamie Lee Curtis character, played in this instance by Ginger Gonzaga, who you may know as the lesbian best friend from She-Hulk. Certainly that's the only thing I know her from, and the only thing that I know anyone in this TV series from. So one of the main things that's lacking from her storyline is any actual establishing of her as someone who's a bored housewife. They don't establish her being bored with her job, they don't establish her being bored with her relationship. She isn't thinking of or working on cheating on her husband. In fact, she just breaks the speed limit, and then tells her friend that she's quite excited to have broken the speed limit. And downplaying her dissatisfaction also harms the plot, as it means that there's no particular reason why they get kidnapped in the second act. In fact, we never even see her at her job, and the Tia Carrera character is completely absent as well. The Eliza Dushku character has been replaced by 2 children. Neither of them are very interesting or memorable. One thing which is still here is the snow globe, and the snow globe was maybe the least important thing in the entire movie, and that was by design. Tom Arnold bought a fake gift for Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter, so that she'd think that he'd been thinking about her while he was on a spy mission, although she didn't know that. The whole point is that it's not something that he thought about, it's just something designed to keep up appearances. Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't even look at it before he gives it to his daughter, and when she opens it, after they smile at each other, she immediately drops it into the bin. She doesn't even move, she just opens her hand and dismissively disposes of it. In the TV series, on the other hand, this is now a major thing. The daughter has 200 snow globes. Every mission, he buys her a snow globe not because he's trying to maintain his cover, but because, in this version, he really is thinking about his daughter, which is not in itself a bad thing, but he's thinking about his daughter by buying her a snow globe, which is every bit as lame as she seems to think. And so we get to the kidnapping, which still happens despite everything that ought to cause it being completely absent. They don't really establish what's happening in the plot before then, or who the bad guys are. Obviously there's no Tia Carrere character. Nor do they tie it into the family dynamic by establishing that Ginger Gonzaga, like Jamie Lee Curtis, is somewhat dissatisfied with her existing life. And after being kidnapped, well, then we established that the Arnold Schwarzenegger replacement isn't even good at his job of being a super spy. Instead, it's up to his wife to use her knowledge as a community college language teacher to decipher the villain's plan and figure out how to stop it, to tell him what to say into the radio, to distract them from their prisoners, and to come up with the plan of how they're going to hijack the helicopter and escape. She even holds her own in a martial arts combat situation with something that she learned in a self-defense course.
Nice job. Is that from your exercise video?
That's from yoga class.
And so, they squeezed the entire plot of a 2-hour and 10-minute movie into a 40-minute episode, simply by removing everything that made it work. And that's something that I would have expected from a television adaptation in the 90s, to squeeze the entire movie into the first episode, maybe not the third act. You squeeze the first 2 acts of the movie into the first episode, and then you just repeat that over the course of the series. Maybe you do the third act in the last episode, if you get notified that you're being cancelled. But here it's not only a terrible story and a terrible episode, but also feels very anachronistic. Frankly, it would have made much more sense to spread this whole thing out over the course of the full dozen episodes, or however many there are in this season. They could have done a couple of episodes where one of them is investigating the other, thinking they're having an affair. A big action scene like the kidnapping over the middle of the season, maybe a 2 or 3-parter. Maybe a few episodes where the wife character is learning the ins and outs of the spy trade. Something full of slapstick comedy, like Jamie Lee Curtis dropping the gun. But instead she is instantly perfect at executing all of the super spy operations, and this series is mostly defined by what has been removed from the movie, rather than by what they've chosen to do with it originally. There is no slapstick. The wife character doesn't have any development. She doesn't really have any motivation or background, because they wanted to make her blander and less flawed. Meanwhile, the other characters lose whatever depth they originally had, and the plot itself has to be drastically simplified. And so I'm left wondering why this exists, and why they felt the need to squeeze such a relatively short story into such a short runtime when they have a longer format. A television series provides so much more room than a film, but they still feel the need to cram it all in. I wonder what James Cameron's doing now. Some of his movies aren't even available on Blu-ray because he insists on being personally involved in every aspect of the editing. But even though this has the name of one of his productions on it, he's obviously not involved here. And there isn't really anything else to keep interest. I expect this to last less than 1 season, and I expect it to be almost instantly forgotten.